I'd like to welcome all the Island Getaways Travel Tribe members and a special hello to my fellow USC alumni. Thank you for joining us today for another in our series of virtual vacations. I do want to add that I am very active with my undergraduate and graduate alumni associations. So that's why the USC members have been invited. My master's degree is from USC. And also wanted to let you know that the virtual vacations have not been available to the general public. They are by invitation. So you're all a very special group, and I thank you for joining us today. I know the USC alumni are quite a lively and engaging group. You're very interesting. I've had lots of wonderful follow-up conversations with you. Not to say that the Island Getaways Travel Tribe is any less fun and friendly. I know many of us have traveled together before, some of us more than once, and you know who you are. I won't belabor that any further. Anyway, I am Jacinta Pereira, owner and founder of Island Getaways Travel. I started the company 24 years ago. I am a specialist, an expert for islands worldwide, also for cruises of all sizes and types. I have lived overseas for 10 years. I've actually lived on 4 continents. I've traveled to 6 of them. I've not been to Antarctica yet. Never say never. You know, last week we were talking about Southern Africa and East Africa. Today we're moving to North Africa and some adjacent countries in the Middle East. I am an Egypt specialist. I have traveled to Egypt and Israel myself, and the question is, would I go back again? Yes, I would, because there's much more to experience. It's a wonderful destination. I'm going to quickly reintroduce Brian Rodemacher, who's been with us the last couple of weeks. He is a business manager with AMA Waterways. He's been with the AMA Waterways family since 2017, but he has decades of experience with major cruise lines. Yes, absolutely. And he counts Kenya and Tanzania as 2 of his favorite destinations. We talked about that a little bit last week. So I'm also going to reintroduce Todd Ney, who is the manager of the Africa department at AMA Waterways. Oh, thank you. That's very helpful. And he's been with the AMA Waterways family since 2016, but also has quite a wealth of experience, 25 years of experience with major travel companies doing land tours and cruises. So collectively, we have sent countless travelers to all 7 continents, I'm sure. So that's important for you to know. Also, Todd is here as our resident expert again, because he has more extensive and more recent experience with these destinations than I do. So I will hand this over to Brian, because I know you're all eager to get into the meat of the presentation. Wonderful destinations and experiences that we're going to show you today virtually. But of course, the goal is for you to experience them yourself firsthand. So Brian, take it away.
Thank you, Jacinta. Thank you very, very much for the kind introduction, and happy to be with you all again today, as we were last Thursday at 12 noon when Todd presented, as Jacinta mentioned, in Southern Africa. Today we're going to head north, and Todd and I do quite a few of these webinars, and so again, we're very pleased to be coming to you again today. And Jacinta, being Jacinta, and that's a good thing, she actually yesterday lined up another webinar, which you're about, if not today, you'll hear about shortly. It's going to be on March 9th. Little teaser for you. And that's a Tuesday, not a Thursday. I'm so sorry. But we have another guest speaker who couldn't make the Thursdays. So we're going to go to Tuesday. But you'll hear more about it. And also a scintillating presenter we're going to have. No question about it. So yeah, Sebastian is fantastic.
Oh, good. Yes.
And just like Todd. And so I'm as Jacinta said, the sales guy from Northern California, coming to you from Sonoma County in Petaluma. And yes, next month it'll be my 4th anniversary with AMA Waterways. Very pleased to be here. And part of the key reason I'm pleased to be here certainly is because of the people you see there. We're actually, Todd and I are in a global virtual conference this week. And so we've been seeing a lot of our on Zoom, similar virtual kind of world we're all living in these days until we're back out there. But we've been seeing our owners quite a bit, and we get certainly the boost from listening to them talk about the future of the company and what's happening. And frankly, it's very, very good news in terms of future reservations that are coming in. I think it's part and parcel with obviously the vaccine that's happening, et cetera. I think those go hand in hand. So we are seeing a lot of activity, particularly for next year, quite frankly, where we're almost 30% booked already for 2022. So that's rather remarkable. And then the books are opening very early for 2023. So you can even make plans for a couple of years down the road, which people are doing as well. But Rudy Schreiner, Christine Karst, and Gary Murphy, they are our passionate and prudent owners. And Rudy is the godfather of North American river cruising. I won't get into all the reasons why, but he's acknowledged both anecdotally and officially that way. He says, I build them and she fills them, that meaning his wife, Christine. He's from Vienna, she's from Dresden, and she really is the heart and soul of the company. I've had a few texts with her today, kind of providing some competitive information that I found out. She wrote back to me immediately. Anyway, Gary Murphy is our sort of Irish raconteur. His dad threw his lot in with Rudy and Christine back in 2002, and Gary is a co-owner as well. So again, very passionate, wonderful people, best people I've ever worked for. Next, please, Todd. And then I'm going to introduce Todd here momentarily. So why river cruise with AMA Waterways? I could expound on this for quite a while, but you can look at those bullet points there and sort of peruse those. I'm not of a mind to read the bullet points to you. Don't want to do that. Up to the upper left. Yes, Jacinta, jump in.
There's just a couple of important points I want to pull out of the list, and that is that we are talking about very small vessels. The standard vessel size for Europe, as we discussed, is approximately 100. For Southern Africa, it was a maximum of 28. Today, you're going to see that we're talking again about a very small vessel, so it's an intimate experience. And as we discussed a couple of weeks ago, in comparison to ocean cruising, this is much more inclusive. Of course, meals are included, but beverages are also included, and your daily tours, activities, and experiences are included. So this is a much more inclusive product. And we are talking about very, very small numbers, which is a travel trend post-COVID. It's very important.
100% agree with that. Yes, you are speaking my language. That's for sure. And again, yes, all the experts are saying that as folks again look to get back out on the water, that the smaller, I guess the operative word is intimate. That is euphemism for the kind of vessel that people are attracted to these days. I also have two housekeeping notes that I realized I forgot to mention. One, there's a question box there for you. And when Todd's going to be presenting, I'll take myself off camera, but I can look at the question box. And so you can be typing in your questions, and then I can interpose or bring those into the conversation if it makes sense, or I can do it later. But any question asked there, and I'll be perusing those. That's number one. Number two, as Jacinta knows, this is being recorded. So I'm going to send her the recording link, and then she'll share that with y'all. And then we'd love for you to share it with your family, friends, colleagues, whomever you'd like that may have an interest in this product in Egypt. So those are the two housekeeping notes. I'm sorry I didn't mention that at the beginning. But again, the Berlitz rating, very proud of that. The fact that Berlitz rates our ships the best in Europe, again, very pleased about that. And then again, all of these wonderful bullet points there. Next slide, Todd, before we jump into your part of the presentation. So this
1 second. There you go. You want to say anything?
Yeah, real quickly here, what I want to point out is on the lower left from Rudy, there is no debt on any of our ships. I can sleep at night. What we have found is that people, when they're thinking about travel, they're thinking about they want to make reservations with a company that they feel comfortable is going to be around, because the travel sector, as we all know, has taken a humongous hit via COVID, right? I mean, there's no question about it. One of the hardest hit industries has been travel. So then you start to think, well, gosh, you're open for 2023 and I can make my reservation. Are you going to be around in 2023? The answer is yes. The reason is all of those ships, the 25 ships, including the 3 ships coming this year, we pay for up front, and they run anywhere from 40 million to 70 million per ship. That's a lot of equity, over $1 billion in equity that we have. So that's a good financial position to be in, to have zero debt. So Rudy, as he says, he can sleep at night, and we can too, which is a good thing. All right, next slide. So I'm going to introduce now, as Jacinta mentioned, Todd Ney is our Africa product manager, both for Southern Africa and then as we head north into Egypt. And he comes from Nanaimo. And Nanaimo, yay, and I've been there. I can say I'm proud to have been there, because Vancouver Island, which is where Nanaimo is one of the most beautiful places in the world. I love Vancouver Island. Everybody knows Victoria, but you got to go up to Nanaimo too. I even went over to the west side of the island called Ucluelet. I was even over there in a small little village. Anyway, I digress. So I'm going to hand it over to Todd. I'm going to disappear from the camera, and I'm going to look at questions. So please ask the questions. And Todd, the stage is yours, and thank you for coming out today and joining us. Todd Ney, take it away.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Jacinta. And hi, I'm Todd. I'm speaking to you from Los Angeles. And the next 40 minutes or so, we'll do a little journey through Egypt and the Middle East. So first point I'd like to, location of Egypt, northeast corner, the continent of Africa, and Mediterranean to the north, Red Sea to the east. And I've got Israel, Jordan, and the UAE, or Dubai, on the map, simply because those are places you can visit before and after the trip. All right, our Egypt program begins with 3 nights in Cairo. You fly down to Luxor. It takes about an hour to fly south to Luxor. We have a 7-night cruise, and then we go back to Cairo for 1 night, and then of course Israel and Jordan, those are extensions. So let's talk about when we start sailing in Egypt. Well, actually, Jacinta is promoting a special group starting May 6th in Cairo through the 17th of 2022. There are plenty of other dates. We sail weekly, but we're going to promote this particular date for Jacinta's group.
Let me just add that last week I had mentioned that 2022 will be the 25th anniversary of my company, and I am offering some extra special things. This is one of them. There are exclusive savings on this particular date for the Egypt itinerary, and I will be talking about that more in my March newsletter. I'll recap everything there, but this is a special date. However, as Todd said, there are other dates available if this particular time frame does not work for you.
Okay, so first of all, let's talk about Cairo. Remember I said 3 nights starting in Cairo, and a couple things about Cairo itself. Population about 23 million people. Pretty big, kind of chaotic. Cairo itself is an Arabic word for conqueror. And a couple of facts about Egypt in general. Weekends are Fridays and Saturdays as opposed to our Saturdays and Sundays. Egypt itself, founded around 3100 BC. It was the Egyptians that actually came up with the 365-day-a-year calendar. And to tell you basically how big Cairo was, even in the 14th century, over 500,000 people lived in Cairo. Through the heart of Cairo is the Nile. The Nile, they say, is the longest river in the world. And they say that, but they also say the Amazon is also the longest river in the world. Either case, both are around 4,300 miles long. The Nile itself starts up in Lake Victoria as well as Ethiopia. 2 Niles, one's called the Blue Nile, the other one's the White Nile. Then they converge to form, of course, the Nile River empties into the Mediterranean Sea. So let's talk about our new ship, the Dahlia. Dahlia, plant flower that grows in Egypt. And when I say well, it's a new ship, but it's kind of sort of, and it's because on the Nile, they only issue so many licenses for ships to cruise on the Nile, so it doesn't get overly crowded and so on. And they're not issuing new licenses, so the only way for us to get onto the Nile was to purchase a ship, which we did about 3 years ago. And 2 years ago, we put it in dry dock in Cairo, and we stripped it down to its hull, and we rebuilt it. And we only launched it just a couple of weeks ago, so it's in Cairo now, a brand new ship. 34 cabins, 18 regular cabins, 16 suites. Got a restaurant and a pool, but actually, let's go through the layout and the ship itself, and I'll explain a few things about it. So we have 5 decks. The lowest deck, well, actually the decks are named again after flowers or plants that grow in Egypt. Acacia deck, those are the lead-in cabins with the large picture window. And we work our way up to the purple section, which is category C. And those are pretty good sized cabins too, 226 square feet, and they all come with a French balcony. And then you see the green, the blue, turquoise, dark blue, navy blue. I think those are all suites. And work our way over, we have the main restaurant. And above that, we have a massage room, fitness room. We even have a wellness coach on board. And we have what is the chef's table. And if you've traveled with AMA before, or cruised the rivers of Europe, a chef's table is like a smaller restaurant. 13 to 15 guests are invited each night to have a beautiful dinner on the chef's table. The chef is there, prepares the meal, tells you the history of the meal and the food, the flavors, and so on. So it's an intimate setting. And everyone on board will get the opportunity at least once during the 7-night cruise to dine at the chef's table. Another important thing I'd like to point out, there is an elevator on board, and the elevator works from the Acacia deck all the way up to the Jasmine deck. And above that, we have you have to take the stairs to the top deck where the pool. So 34 cabins and 68 guests. So let's go on and take a look at a few things about the Amadaya. First thing, top deck, swimming pool. And look at the landscape behind it. These are renderings, but it's very similar. You can notice that we have umbrellas, and over to the left, we have a canopy. And that's because Cairo, or Egypt itself, is a very dry climate, lots of sunshine. In fact, Cairo itself only gets averages a couple of inches of rain a year. And when I was in Luxor once, I was talking to one of our Egyptologists, and her name was Dina. And I said to Dina, gosh, it just looks incredibly dry, the landscape. I go, when was the last time it rained here in Luxor? And she looked at me, kind of a weird look. She says, I have no clue, maybe 17 or 19 years ago. So that tells you how dry the climate is. So when you come to Egypt, of course, bring your swimsuit, but also bring a sun hat and lots of sunblock. So here's a rendering of our outdoor restaurant, which is just down deck from the swimming pool. This is the entrance to the lobby. You can see the Egyptian scene. When you board the Amadaya, this is where you'll be greeted. Okay, this is our lounge. And the lounge, if you're familiar with our ships in Europe and the Mekong and so on, we will have what they call a sip and sail, which is like a happy hour before dinner. And at that time, for about an hour, drinks will be complimentary, and maybe local wine, local beer, maybe a cocktail of the day. But something will go on where you can all gather for about an hour for a sip and sail before dinner. And then after dinner, we still have more entertainment. We'll do things like a belly dance show, a Darawish show, which is kind of like a folk music, cultural heritage type of performance. Galabaya party where you'll all dress up, or you can if you like, into local costumes and so on like that. There might even be, like a captain's cocktail party or something like that. So there's always something going on in the lounge. This is a rendering of our restaurant, and food in our restaurant will be local, which is Egyptian / Middle Eastern / Mediterranean, but will also, of course, feature continental cuisine. We'll be able to cater to gluten, dairy-free, vegan, etc. So just let us know at the time of booking what you need, and we'll be all prepared for you. I'd also like to point out that in the restaurant, local beer and local wine are always complimentary during lunch and dinner. And you'll go, local wine? What is local wine in Egypt? And believe it or not, they do have vineyards in Egypt, not very many. And so what they need to do is they import a lot of grapes in from South Africa, and they mix it all up together, and there you have your local Egyptian wine, local beer tends to be a brand called Stella. In terms of hygiene and so on, most of our food will be imported from Europe just to meet Western standards. Here's a picture of one of our suites. You can see the bedding is 2 beds, or you can 2 beds or 1. You just need to let us know at the time of booking. Up on the right-hand side, you can see a sitting room, and then there's your aerial view looking down into the suite. The suites themselves, anywhere from 370 to 430 square feet. This is the sitting lounge in the suite, and I should mention, whether you're in a cabin with a picture window or in a suite, Wi-Fi is always complimentary, and of course we'll have on-demand TV in all rooms. Bathrooms in the suite, this is in all 16 suites, will come with a full tub, walk-in shower, and something I never realized that was important to a lot of people, but it is, they'll all come with 2 sinks.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Our middle category, category C, these all come with a French balcony. Again, 1 bed or 2. I just kind of give you an idea, 226 square feet. And then the lead-in cabins with the picture window, bedding, again, 2 or 1 bed, just let us know. Good storage space here. Actually, the rendering doesn't show this, but there's storage under the bed as well as a closet. So let's look at the Amadelia. And so let's talk about the program in general. So basically the way it works is you're going to fly from North America into Egypt. Most flights into Egypt arrive late in the afternoon, early evening. We're going to meet you at the airport. We're going to assist you through immigration. And speaking of immigration, you do need a visa for Egypt. The visa currently is $25. And you can get it online. So about maybe 3 or 4 weeks before your departure to Egypt, just go online. All the information will be in your documentation, and you just apply for your visa, put in your credit card number, and then they'll send you a confirmation. You can get your visa on arrival, but it slows down the process through immigration. And after a long flight, best to get through as quick as you can. We'll be there to assist you. Get your baggage, and we'll take you directly to the hotel. There's no waiting for a transfer, say at 4 o'clock, 8 o'clock, midnight, or whatever. You get transferred on arrival. In terms of vaccinations and so on, there are no mandatory vaccinations, and malaria isn't present in this part of the world. Anyway, so we'll meet you at the airport. We'll transfer you to the hotel. The hotel we're using is the Four Seasons Hotel. You can see that in front of you. If you go into on your screen, you remember at the beginning I said Cairo, it's a big city, kind of chaotic, and I was showing you that slide earlier. Well, this hotel is actually located about a mile south of that location, and we picked this area because you just get a little more sense of tranquility in a big city. Look to the right-hand side of that photo, see a lot of trees and stuff like that, and that's because the hotel is actually across the street from the botanical gardens.
Hey, Todd.
Yes.
Good question. Can you explain what a French balcony is?
Good question. Yeah.
That is a good question. Do you want me to explain it, Brian, or do you want to explain it?
Well, I mean, we can all take a hack at it, but basically, it's a sliding glass door with a rail, right? Essentially, what it is, it's not a traditional balcony that you step out onto. There's a railing there, but you can open the sliding glass door and get, quote unquote, fresh air, even though, it's going to be typically it's going to be pretty warm. But that would be my Jacinta, you want to say what you think?
It's a floor to ceiling window sliding door. It is a very narrow balcony. You cannot step out onto it. You cannot sit on it. A full balcony is one where you could sit out there. So it's a little bit different. But
yeah,
you can't open it.
Yeah, you get a lot of fresh air. Brings in the fresh air.
Yes.
The sliding doors.
And it's a full view floor to ceiling.
Right.
As opposed to the picture window. And I do want to note there are no inside cabins on any of the AMA vessels. No dark, claustrophobic little cubicle inside cabins.
Correct.
Yeah, the other way I look at a French balcony, I look at it, it's kind of like being outside, but you're not, because you've got the big window to open up, sort of thing. anyways, so here's the Four Seasons. If you go on to TripAdvisor, you'll find this particular hotel usually #1 rated on TripAdvisor.
Yes.
Four Seasons has a beautiful name, great name. This is, of course, a 5-star hotel. It's equipped with complimentary Wi-Fi, fitness center, pool. It's actually also adjacent to a small shopping mall. So let's take a look at the rooms. These are the rooms that you'll be staying in. They're the superior category. All the rooms have a partial Nile view. Like I said earlier, complimentary Wi-Fi. And if you're familiar with stereo systems and stuff, each room is equipped with a Bose music system. So this is the interior of the hotel. And so if you remember how I said we're trying to look for tranquility and peacefulness from a big, big city. So this is where you have your swimming pool, you're overlooking the Nile. And when we're in Cairo, we always include breakfast and we always include lunch. We don't include dinner simply because we're out all day sightseeing and we feel like guests would like to do their own thing in the evening, but not to worry because the hotel is equipped with or has 6 restaurants. Each restaurant has a different theme or cuisine from around the world. So after a day of sightseeing, get together with your newfound friends or just on your own, have a meal and back to your room, you get a good night's sleep and head out on the sightseeing the next day. So anyways, day 1, you're gonna arrive. We're gonna meet you at the airport, take you to the hotel. Nothing planned for the first night, get a good night's sleep. And then the next day, we're gonna head out to the Egyptian Museum. And the museum here, it's old. It was built back in the early 1900s. This is where you'll find the mask of King Tut. King Tut, they found this mask back in 1925. And who was King Tut? He ruled Egypt from 1332 BC to 1322 BC. He ruled the country from starting at the age of 9, and he died at the age of 19. And how did he die? They're not sure. Actually, it came up in the news recently. They now think that maybe he died in a chariot race. In Cairo, they are building a brand new museum. It's called the Grand Museum. And if the Grand Museum is open in time, they're saying it'll be opened up later this year, but they also said it would be open last year and the year before, so it's kind of slow. COVID is slowing it down, but they're saying probably by the end of this year, it will be open, and it's a much larger museum. All the exhibits that you found in the old museum will be brought to the new museum, along with 30,000 additional, and I have such a hard time saying this, antiquities or antiquities have not been exposed or never been seen by the public, will be at the new museum. After our time at the museum, you'll get a tour and then you'll get free time on your own. We're gonna head down to the souk, which is actually more the Khan el-Kahili market. And the market here this is the home of Egyptian artisans, craftsmen and stuff. They've been around this area, this neighborhood, the shopping area has been around since the 10th century. And we'll do a walking tour of this particular area. You can meet with the vendors. Another great thing about this area is it has a lot of coffee houses. And coffee houses have been around in Egypt since around the mid-1700s. And if you think about it, Starbucks or Coffee Bean or whatever, they've been around since the 1990s, I guess, maybe earlier in Seattle. But in Cairo, they've been around since the 1700s. So another thing, Egyptians were so ahead of the game. And we will visit a coffee house / restaurant. We'll have a beautiful lunch in this area. One of the restaurants with some of the best food in Cairo. So our day out, we've been to the museum, we've been to the Khan el-Khalili market, we've had a great lunch, we'll head back to the hotel for the night, get a free evening at the hotel, and the next day, we'll head out to the pyramids. And we all are familiar with the pyramids. They're built of limestone, granite. They were the tallest buildings in the world up until the 14th century. And of course, they are tombs. The blocks themselves weigh 1 to 2 tons. And most of those blocks came from about 500 miles away. So how did the Egyptians get these blocks here? They brought them down on the Nile River and then they transported them up. There was a city of around 20,000 surrounding the pyramids to build the pyramids. And if you think about transporting just one block, 1 to 2 ton block, even today would be a feat. They were managing to do that, well, back in 2500 BC when the pyramids were built. So of course the pyramids are tombs, and a lot of people ask, well, can I get inside the pyramids to see the tomb? And the answer is sometimes, maybe, for the most part, no. And there is an entrance into the pyramid. I've had the fortunate experience of getting inside the pyramid to see the tomb. But to get in there, you kind of have to crawl kind of on your sideways. The stairs are steep, and it's not open every day. In fact, it's rare for anyone to get into the tomb, and there'll be a spontaneous day when it is open, and someone standing there and saying $25 to go on in if you want to see the tomb. But it is a difficult thing to climb into. The other issue, or other thing people ask me about are camel rides, and where do you do a camel ride? And actually, pyramids are pretty much the only place where you can do a camel ride. We don't include a camel ride. In fact, believe it or not, camels aren't even native to Egypt. But if you want to do a camel ride, there'll be all kinds of owners with their camels walking around the pyramids, offering rides and a picture and stuff. And they'll say $1 for, a ride and stuff like that. So you get on, they'll walk you around for 10 minutes, take pictures and stuff, and then they're finished. And then they'll charge you $14 to get off. So $1 on, $14 to get off.
Yes,
and
that's true. That is true.
They haven't changed their ways in years and years, and it'll probably be $20 by 2022. So
yeah, it's a game.
It is a game, but it's a fun game, and it's like another example where I bought a little artifact at this little stand on the river one day, and it was like $3. He took US dollars, and I gave him a 10, and so he owed me $7 change. So he would go 1, 2, 4, 7, 10. So he skipped numbers as he's giving me my dollar bills back. But I caught him. I said, "Hey, stop that!" And he would laugh. And then, at the end of the day, $1's not going to hurt me or anything like that. And it goes a long ways for the locals. So I let him have his way. Just watch out how many dollar bills you get back.
Yeah, you do have to keep a sense of humor.
Yeah, keep it with a sense of humor. Keep
it light.
You nailed it, Jacinta. Exactly. The Sphinx themselves. Here's a picture of the Sphinx. And the Sphinx was built around the same time as the pyramids, around 2500 BC. Sphinx is that you're seeing there is the head is that of a pharaoh, and the body is that of a lion. What makes this Sphinx really incredible is that it's all carved out of one stone. The head you see there is of King Khafre. After we've spent time at the pyramids and the Sphinx, we're going to head over to the Mena House. And the Mena House was an old hunting lodge built back around 1860, and it still has this incredible architecture. And back in the old days, I guess, hunters used to come down from Europe, and they would stay at this lodge and hunt for hippos and crocodiles in the Nile Delta. Of course, they don't do that anymore. But we're going to have the Mena House now. It is an old lodge. They've kind of added on with a more modern hotel, but their significant part of the hotel is still the original lodge. And we'll have a beautiful 5-star lunch at the lodge overlooking the pyramids. And after our lunch and our stay at the Mena House, we will stop at a church and a synagogue, excuse me, and head back to the hotel. You'll have a free night. And then the next day, we'll head to Cairo Airport, and we'll make the 1-hour flight down to Luxor. And Luxor, an Arabic word meaning fortress, castles type structure and so on. And Luxor was it's in the location, the ancient capital of Egypt. It's actually known as the world's greatest open air museum. And back in the day, 2500 BC, this is where you wanted to be. In Cairo, this is where the local population, or in Egypt, flocked to. So we're going to fly to Luxor, in the morning time. We're going to get to Luxor in the late morning, and then we're going to transfer to our ship. We have our own private dock in Luxor. You'll board the ship, check into your room, get settled, have lunch on board, and then we're going to head over to Luxor Temple. This temple here was built around 1400 BC and is built by order of King Ramses II. And which brings me to, like, we're going to visit a lot of temples and tombs and so on along the Nile River. So what are the tours like? The tours of the temples take anywhere from 1 to 2 hours. And while you're walking through the temples and stuff, remember, these temples are the way they were back in 2500 BC, 1500 BC. So you've got to be able to walk 1 to 2 hours, walk or stand. They don't have like handrails or benches or anything like that in these temples. They've kept them the way they were actually built. Those that do have mobility issues of some sort, you let us know. We'll try to do our best to get you to most temples, but there may be some temples that you won't be able to see. We'll have a couple of wheelchairs on board. It's just that travel with an open mind if you have some mobility issues, and we'll do our best to get you to see as much as we can, but there's some places where you won't. And remember, also, we do have an elevator on board, so it's like head to the top, enjoy yourself on the deck. So walking tours, which also brings me to headsets are provided to everybody. And in Egypt, remember how I said we had 68 guests on board? Well, we split the guests up into 20 to 23, groups of 20 to 23. And that group, you have your own Egyptologist for the whole trip, from Cairo onto the cruise and back to Cairo. So you'll have the same Egyptologist. They're university educated. They have to have a special license, and they'll be your guide throughout the temples and tombs. Of course, we'll have an AMA tour director or cruise manager that oversees the Egyptologist that you can always go to for, questions and so on. But it's the Egyptologist that'll sort of bring Egypt alive, and it's very intimate and a small group, and it's a great learning experience. So here's, I'll just point out some of the temples and tombs that we visit along the way. And first one is the Temple of Queen Hatshepsut. Yeah, and it's funny you say that because this is a true story. I called Magdi, who I work with in Cairo, and I said, Magdi, I just have a hard time saying Hatshepsut. It just doesn't come out of my mouth right. He goes, don't worry, just say Queen Hot Chicken Soup, and that's what I say now. So Queen Hot Chicken Soup. It's close enough. She reigned Egypt for about 20 years. She was the first female leader. And you think about it, female leader back in that time. I mean, to get a female leader in the world today makes news, headlines, stuff like that. Not in the old days. It wasn't a big deal for the Egyptians. And Queen Hot Chicken Soup, she was a first leader, a strong leader. And if you see statues of her today in Egypt, most of the time you'll see her with a beard, broad shoulders, big crown, because they looked at her as a strong, fearless leader, almost in comparison to, say, a male leader. Another neat thing we're going to see, and this is really a special visit, very few people get to go into the tomb of Queen Nefertari. And who was Queen Nefertari? She was the first wife of King Ramses II. She was considered the most beautiful. She could read, she could write, well educated. She died at the age of around 40, well, between 40 and 50 years, so let's say about 45 years. She married King Ramses when she was 13. He was 15, kind of remarkable. And so this tomb was basically ignored for years. And then they kind of started digging around in the 1980s and stuff like that. And then here in the 2000s, they've kind of got it all together now, and you can go in, but very few people get to go in. It's kind of an exclusive visit, doesn't cater to the masses or anything. And most cruise companies won't even include it. And the reason they don't is because our cost, just as a cruise company bringing all our guests, it costs $128 per person just to go inside this tomb. But it's included with AMA Waterways, and this tomb is incredibly colorful, covers about 5,500 square feet. And when you're inside this tomb, you'll see little stories and poems and stuff like that written to Queen Nefertari from King Ramses. So this is really a special visit that for sure will stay with you for a lifetime.
And Todd, I just want to add that if someone is thinking about going into a tomb, this is the location to do that activity, not the Giza pyramids, because you know, the entrance, as you said, is very, very cramped, but they are less impressive. There may not be as much artwork, you know, on the walls. They tend to be very small chambers that you go into. So this is actually the location to do that experience, to have that experience.
And also there is a comment here real quickly that says her name is Nefertiti, but Nefertiti was a different, so this queen is actually Nefertari. So
yes,
there is a different queen Nefertiti. So they are two different people.
They are two different people. And the meaning, I forgot, what was the meaning? Glorious or something. It was a beautiful, like the name Nefertari or Nefertiti. It means, the meanings are the same. But yeah, there's a Titi and a Tari. How's that? Okay, let's keep going. And another temple we'll visit is the Temple of Horus. And the only reason I put this in here is because, well, it was built back around 230 BC. One of the best preserved temples along the Nile. And there's a reason for that. And actually, they didn't even discover this temple until around the middle 1860s. And it was by a French archaeologist who was just digging around. I guess he came across something hard. But when he was digging around on a sand dune. And then he found this thing. So this temple was so well preserved simply because it was covered by a massive sand dune. All right, in Egypt, most of the temples are built on the east side of the river, and the tombs are on the west side of the river. And there's a reason for that. And back in the day, Egyptians didn't say sunrise or sunset. They said the birth of the day and the death of the day when the sun went down. So that's why temples are on the east side, where the birth of the day, tombs on the west side, which is the death of the day. Of course, locals get around on what they call feluccas, and you'll be able to enjoy a felucca ride on the Nile. And another neat thing that we'll visit is a Nubian village. And who were the Nubians? Well, they actually settled in Egypt probably around 8,000 BC, well before the Egyptians settled back around 3,200 BC. The Nubians came from the central Sahara. And for the most part, they live on the islands of the Nile, and their homes are incredibly colorful. And there's different villages along the way, and we're going to make a visit to a really special village. And once you're there, you see the homes, and you can kind of see the drawings and the carvings and stuff that they have on their homes. And there's actually a reason for that, because in that home, the family is, those drawings and carvings is telling you the history of the family that lives inside that home. And typical picture of the Nubians. You would look at the Nubians in comparison to, say, the indigenous here in the United States, the Native Americans, or the Inuit up in the Arctic, or First Nations up in Canada. They were the first settlers in this part of the world. So we'll visit a Nubian village, and other companies visit Nubian villages, and you go in, you say hello, head back to the ship after 40 minutes. But we're going to go to this particular village, and we're going to walk the village with the locals. We'll visit their market and so on. But we're not going to go back to the ship right away. We're actually going to stay in the village and have lunch with the locals. Down in Aswan, there's actually from Aswan, 2,200 miles south of Aswan is a temple called Abu Simbel, built by King Ramses in honor for Queen Nefertari. And this temple was built on the banks of the Nile River. Back in the late 50s, 1960s, they were building a new dam, a big dam on the Nile called the Aswan Dam or High Dam. And the lake behind it, Lake Nasser, was going to cover Abu Simbel. And so they wanted to save this temple. If you look closely at the doorway there, you kind of see a man standing there. And so it tells you the size of this temple. And so what the Egyptian government did in order to save the temple was they took it apart brick by brick by brick and moved it up the hill about 300 meters or maybe 1,000 feet and rebuilt it block by block by block. And what makes it really remarkable is on February 22nd and October 22nd of each year, when the sun comes up over the horizon, the first rays will shine through the doorway and out the other side of the temple. And those days are actually special because remember I said it was King Ramses that had this commission of this temple. February 21st was King Ramses' birthday. October 21st was the commission. That's when he became king of Egypt on October 21st. So when they built the temple, they brought it up 600 feet and rebuilt it. They're off by a day now because the sun shines through on October 22nd and February 22nd, but it's still pretty close. To see Abu Simbel, it's limited. You have to take a flight there. It takes 40 minutes. And it basically, cruise ships sell it as an optional on the river. And then it's first come, first served, depending on how many seats are left on the plane. And we sell it also as an optional. But with us, you can pre-book it before you leave to Egypt. So you're guaranteed a seat on that flight down to Abu Simbel. So there's no disappointment if you want to go. If there are extra seats and then you decide you want to go on the ship, that's fine too. But it's based on space availability. So I would say you can pre-book it. And for me, seeing Abu Simbel for the first time was like seeing the pyramids for the first time, the Great Wall for the first time, even the Grand Canyon or Machu Picchu. This is something that'll stay with you.
It is a very, very famous site, and I also do recommend it based on your interest level. And it's wonderful that Alma makes it possible to pre-book it and confirm it so that you're not disappointed due to the space issue.
Yeah. Okay, another temple, Komombo. This is about 30 miles north of Aswan, built around 330 BC. And Komombo is dedicated to two gods, Sobek, who was a crocodile god, and Horus, who was a falcon head god. So if you look at this temple here, there's actually two entrances, one for Horus and one for Sobek. And what makes this area really interesting, the crocodile god of Sobek, you'll find a lot of mummified crocodiles in this part of the world. Karnak Temple. This is the largest temple that you will visit, and it's actually the largest temple in the world. They say it's the largest outdoor religious site in the world. It covers about 250 acres, well over 2,000 years old, and you can look at the size of the columns. It's just absolutely massive. So this is where a temple where you would actually have a 2-hour walking tour. And then a final temple I want to just point out, I'm just pointing out some of them. This is a temple of Hathor. They consider this, again, one of the best preserved temples. You'll see a lot of Egyptian, Greek, and Roman architecture in here. And again, well over 2,000 years old. But this temple had a lot of pools and sacred pools. And if you look in the foreground here, you can kind of see something that looks like a pool. It's been filled up with gravel, and that's exactly what it is. And so no swimming at the pool here. But again, 2,500 years ago, Egyptians were swimming in pools, and we look at that as a, visit someone's home and you get to go to a pool and stuff like that as a, highlight of our lives. Egyptians were doing that 2,500 years ago. So we spent 7 nights on the Nile, and you've seen a lot of temples. We visited a tomb, villages, and stuff like that. And if you go to Europe, you spend a week or 10 days in Europe, see a lot of plazas, churches, little alleyways and stuff like that. Always wonderful to see. But maybe by the 9th day, wouldn't it be nice to see something different? Yes, you can see another church or plaza, great, but let's do something different. And that's what we decided to do. We're going to fly back to Cairo, and we're actually going to visit the presidential palace. So no tomb, no temple, but the presidential palace, or they call it the Abdeen Palace. And the palace itself, built around 1873, and this is where the monarchy lived for a long time. In fact, the president still lives in a portion of the palace, and when dignitaries come to visit Egypt, this is where they stay. The palace itself has maybe 5 small, intimate museums. One's a historic clock museum, there's an art museum, there's even a small museum of the gifts that dignitaries have brought. So we're going to do a walking tour inside the palace, not the whole thing, because part of it's still private, and very, very few visitors ever get to see this, and they've kind of just opened it up. Other companies won't include it because it's just too expensive but we include it. And so we'll do this temple. This is the second to last day, and so what we decided to do was have we take it one step further. We're actually going to have lunch in the presidential palace. And we're going to call this like a farewell lunch, because on your last day, when you come back to North America, most flights leave in the early morning, 5 a.m., 6, 7 a.m. And if we had a sort of a celebration the night before you have to fly home, we just thought that a lot of guests might be a little anxious. I got to get my bag ready. I got an early wake up call, this and that. So why not have a worry-free party, luncheon, and in the afternoon, and we'll call this the farewell lunch at the presidential palace. After that, we'll stop in Old Cairo, and we get back to the hotel about 5 o'clock. You'll have a free evening, and then the next morning, we'll transfer you back to the airport in time for your flight. Well, some flights might leave in the afternoon too, but depending, we transfer you to connect with your homebound flight. That's our 12-day trip through Egypt, and I want to recommend one documentary if Egypt does fascinate you. And this documentary came out on Netflix about 4 months ago, and it's The Secrets of the Saqqara Tomb. And they actually started filming this. They found this tomb near the pyramids, Saqqara Tomb, and they started filming as they were digging into the tomb to find out what's inside this tomb. And it's a period, the documentary takes place over a period of about a year until early 2020. And it's what they're finding as they work their way inside this tomb. And I can say that maybe the last 10 minutes are pretty exhilarating. I'm not going to say anything else, but the suspense builds up and up and up. Jacinta, have you seen this yet?
Yeah. No spoilers. I won't say anything either. Yeah, no, it's wonderful.
Okay. Okay, so that's my documentary recommendation. So I just wanted to quickly go over the different extensions that we have. First one is Jordan, 4 nights in Jordan. You'll fly to Jordan, and we'll meet you at the airport there. You need a visa. We get the visa for you, and we'll take you to the hotel. Jordan is 4 nights, 2 nights in Amman and 2 nights in Petra. And Amman, we're going to stay at the St. Regis Hotel, a beautiful 5-star hotel. Just kind of finished up a renovation. It's in the center of the city. So the first night you'll arrive, check in, good night's sleep. Next day, we're going to head out and explore Amman, the old part of Amman. It's an incredibly old city. Statues here date back to over 7,000 years. Today, Amman's a cultural capital of Jordan, population of about 4 million people. So we'll tour Amman, the old part of Amman. We'll also head outside of Amman, head up to a place called Jerash, and this is an ancient city settled around the 2nd century by the Romans, and it's kind of got that Roman Greco architecture. You can see the Colosseum there, and we'll also have lunch out in this area at a sort of a castle-like restaurant. After that, we're going to take the drive south on the 3rd day to Petra. And we all know picture of Petra here. This scene here, made famous in Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade. This is the treasury. And they figure that Petra was first settled maybe around the 5000 BC. And it was an amazing settlement up to about the 2nd century. Maybe up to 30,000 people lived in Petra. There's over 800 tombs and structures in this particular area. And then around the 2nd century, it was abandoned. We're not sure why, but a lot of different reasons, earthquake, drought, change in trading routes, and so on. And then it basically was undiscovered until the early 1830 by a Swiss traveler. And today it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And so we'll spend 2 nights in Petra. We'll do a walking tour of Petra. You'll get to see the treasury and other areas. And while we're in Petra, we're going to stay at a hotel called the Old Village Resort. And with Alma, you're always used to staying at 5-star hotels and our service and so on like that. But in Petra, we picked a hotel that's actually a 4-star hotel, but there's a couple reasons behind it. Number one, look at the architecture. Petra's a very dry climate, red rock and so on. Hotel is kind of built in the hills with its red rocks and stuff. So it's very, very local. There's a couple of 5-star chain hotels down the road in Petra, but this one was unique, and it's actually owned by the locals. And that's another way of us and you supporting the locals. The city itself now is not 30,000, more, maybe like 5,000. This hotel is so local that they don't even have a liquor license. And of course, liquor is kind of taboo in the Middle East, so the locals feel they no need for a liquor license. So this is the one place where you wouldn't be able to get a glass of wine or a bottle of beer, but walk down to the local liquor store and get something. The other option is Dubai for 3 nights before, and we'll spend 3 nights in Dubai. You can see the city here, crazy city, built out of nothing on the Persian Gulf. Architecture can be amazing. I don't know, sometimes cheesy, but for the most part, it's something that probably everyone should at least see once in their life. And when we're in Petra, we're going to stay at the Marriott Marquis, again, a 5-star hotel. Look at the architecture, even though the Marriott is kind of out of this world. And
it's over the top. Everything is over the top.
That's what it is, over the top, because there was nothing there at one point. So the only way to get visitors to come was to go over the top. And they did an amazing job, and I'll explain something about it. These are the rooms that we stay in. And when we're in Dubai, we will do a city tour, but we'll also head out into the desert, and we'll do a sand desert tour, and we'll also have dinner out in the desert one night. And to give you an idea, I was with our guide once in Dubai in July. We're not in this part of the world in July, but it was hot, maybe 115, 117 degrees. And I said to our guide, I said, gosh, I just can't take this heat anymore. Forget about researching Dubai. I got to get out of here. He goes, well, let's go to the mall. And I said to him, I don't go to malls. I'm not a real shopper, maybe a thrift store or something, but I don't go to malls. And he goes, let's go to this mall. It's a little different. It's air conditioned. So we go into the mall, and I walk in the mall, and to my left is this incredible indoor ski hill.
Yes.
So I did go skiing, being Canadian, on my college ski team and stuff. I just thought this was the most amazing thing. So the whole idea was I skied for about 4 hours inside a shopping mall when it was 117 degrees outside. And so that's kind of over the top type of stuff that Dubai has.
But shopping mall is an understatement for that complex. There's a lot more.
Yeah. It's the other thing
it's an amusement park.
Yeah, we're going to do a day trip also to Abu Dhabi, and you'll see here the Zayed Grand Mosque. So we'll tour the city. We'll also visit this mosque, and it's an incredible structure. It looks old, but it's not. It was actually built in the 1980s, and we're there on a Thursday in Abu Dhabi. But if we were there on a Friday, you would be in this mosque along with 40,000 other worshipers. Mm-hmm. So you can do Jordan or Dubai before Egypt if you like. And the other option is to visit Israel for 4 nights after your cruise. And what we're going to do is we're going to do 4 nights in Jerusalem. And we do a lot of neat things in Israel. If you're Christian and if you're Christianity is really, really important to you, you're going to go to Israel and you're going to spend 10 nights there, maybe even 2 weeks. Jewish, you want to explore the Jewish history and your faith and so on like that, you're going to go to Israel and you're going to spend 10 days, 2 weeks. What we do on our 4-night stay is 4 nights in Jerusalem, and we're going to just touch on a little bit of the great things that Israel has to offer. And we'll do a non-stop flight from Cairo to Tel Aviv. It takes about an hour and a half. And we'll tour Tel Aviv, and then we're going to head up to Jerusalem, about an hour outside of Jerusalem. And we'll do things like, we'll visit Bethlehem. You'll see the tomb of King David. We'll visit the Jewish quarter. We'll even visit the Mahani Yahuwah market, which is where the locals shop. So we're touching on a lot of things in a little way, if that makes sense. So you get familiar with it all. The hotel we're going to use is the Astoria, Waldorf Astoria, again, a 5-star hotel. And we're actually going to do a day trip out of Jerusalem one day and head to Masada. This Masada was built around 30 BC by King Herod. It was the final site of the first Jewish-Roman war. This is kind of where the elite went, when they wanted to get away from it all. And if you look on the left-hand side there, you kind of see a little black thing sticking out. Well, that's the cable car to get to the top of Masada. So we'll walk around Masada, do a little tour there, and then look over on the left-hand side there. You see that water out there? Well, actually, that's the Dead Sea. And after Masada, we're going to head down to the Dead Sea, and we're going to have lunch at a resort on the Dead Sea. And this isn't me, but you also will get the opportunity, if you want, to take a dip in the Dead Sea. And what makes the Dead Sea so famous? Number one, it's lowest elevation found anywhere in the world, maybe 1,700 feet below sea level, depending on the level of the water at the time. And the Dead Sea is also known for its salinity. And because it is so salty, it's virtually impossible to sink. So those that want to get in to the water and float around, no problem. If you don't, we're at a resort. I do see that sometimes you see these things in spas, Dead Sea mud or Dead Sea salt for your, that they sell and stuff like that. So there's a spa at the resort if you want to go get a facial or a massage. Otherwise, we'll head back to Jerusalem later on that afternoon. And then on the last day, we'll transfer you back to Tel Aviv Airport in time for your flight home. And gosh, I hope I wasn't too long, but I'm going to move on to questions and answers if we have anything. That's Jacinta there looking at the King Tut. Is that the King Tut mask, Jacinta?
Yes, at the Cairo Museum. That was a very exciting exhibit. Brian, do we have any additional questions?
Yeah, so we have a question from Tim. This is back to the Queen Nefertari tomb. And who are the figures portrayed in Queen Nefertari's tomb? Do we know that answer?
He built the tomb. No, I can't tell you that. There's all different figures and stuff like that. Remember, it covers 5,500 square feet. But he built the tomb to honor Queen Nefertari because he lived. King Ramses, they say he lived till about 65 years old. Some places they say he lived till 90 years old. So when he was 50 years old, when Queen Nefertari died at the age of 45, he still had like a good 30 years or so on, and he had time to build the tomb for Queen Nefertari.
Mm-hmm. It's probably her and her courtesans quite a bit, but it could be, visual depictions of stories, things from her life or things they had done together. That's fairly typical for a lot of the artwork in Egypt. I actually have studied it. At one time I considered becoming an archaeologist, but I'm not really well suited to work with dusty dead things. I'm much better off with live people. I do see that we've gone over just a few minutes here, so is there another question?
There's one last question from Robert, and Robert asks, for those of us that travel to Egypt on our own, but may want to go to some of these sites, how best to do it? Can you help separately with reservations or some of the harder sites to visit, or with a local guide? So I think Robert's asking about doing Egypt on his own, maybe not necessarily through us.
No. Actually, I know Robert, and he is going on a business trip. So I'm not sure if he's going to have I talked to him briefly, a lot of free time to really explore and experience it.
Right.
You need a chunk of time really to do some of this. And for him, I would say go back on vacation. It's difficult to tag some of this onto a business trip. Return on vacation and really do it right. I mean, have it planned separately. That would be my suggestion, because there's such a wealth Oh, there's so much. I mean, there's the 7-night Nile River cruise plus the pre and the post in Cairo. And then, of course, there are the adjacent countries. So
Right.
it does require a bit of a time commitment. When I go on business trips, I add a day or two pre or post to do a few extra things, but it's not really ideal. So for Robert, you know, you can do things in Cairo if you're in Cairo. That would be day experiences, but these are really much further outside of the city, down the Nile, and they would require, you know, greater time commitment and probably a separate trip.
Okay, thank you, Jacinta. So Cindy has a comment. Thank you all for yet another wonderful, with capital letters, wonderful tour. And so thank you, Cindy, for joining us again today. And then let's see, Tim is asking, what's the best link to review these tours online? Should I go to the...
No,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm actually going to send everyone a PDF summarizing all the information from the webinar, because it is a lot of information. We don't expect you to remember it all, but it's all outlined wonderfully. I will be sending that to all of you. And just to let you know, there is no formal presentation next Thursday. We will have another one in March, which I will be telling you all about. However, on Saturday, the 27th, I'm going to have a travel talk open Zoom meeting with me. So you're welcome to join me from 10 to 11 a.m. That's West Coast California time. That'll be breakfast in Hawaii or a late lunch in New York, BYOB. And we can review anything from the first webinar about river cruising, Europe we touched on lightly, and then Africa last week and Egypt this week. But it's completely wide open, so I will send an invite. You're welcome to drop in and we can just chat in a more extended way. And I will get in touch with all of you about the next formal presentation, which will be Tuesday, March 9th. And so those details will be coming.
Indeed, and that thank you, Jacinta. That's also going to be, fortunately, with Alma Waterways, which we're very happy about that. And Tim said thank you. All right, thanks, Tim. All right, so I want to say thank you to Jacinta. Thank you, Todd, for your time as well. And thank you to all of you folks for taking time out of your day to join us. And Jacinta will, as she mentioned, send both the video link and some other added pertinent and salient information for you as well. All right, so then without further ado, we'll say so long, be well. Let's look forward to getting back out there. And thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
See you next time.
See you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.